I am now going to be required, the college can go ahead with this, to put me into a re-education program with their so-called social media experts. That shows you exactly what our bloody Constitution is worth.
Jordan Peterson's voice reverberates with dramatic gravitas as he reacts to a court decision, speaking to the profound implications that unfold.
Despite my proclivity to feel guilt, which is quite substantive, and despite my temperamental unwillingness to engage in conflict, not only do I not see what I did wrong, I think what I've done on the public communication front is my responsibility as a clinician to tell the truth about what I see.
With unwavering conviction, he delves into the heart of the matter, dissecting the ruling's impact with the precision of a surgeon.
You know, I'm perplexed, I would say, about the situation in Canada. I've been thinking about it this morning. As you know, the court that we appealed the College of Psychologists' decision to decided that the college it's within the college's purview to stop me from having any political opinions, as far as I can tell.
Amidst the legal labyrinth, his piercing insights lay bare the potential consequences that ripple through society due to this pivotal decision.
The decision, which I posted on Twitter and will post in the description of this video, starts out by making a case for the fundamental reality of freedom of speech for Canadians in Canada, and then says, but, and that's always a bad start when you're talking about freedom of speech.
Through the lens of his impassioned analysis, Peterson becomes a fierce interpreter of justice, helping us understand the wider ramifications.
I am now going to be required, the college can go ahead with this, to put me into a re-education program with their so-called social media experts, and that's also, by the way, a profession that does not exist, until I learn my lesson, whatever that is, regardless of how much time that takes, by their judgment. Because you're a professional, you're bound by your professional organization. And apparently they're not bound, even though they're a government organization, fundamentally. Apparently they're not bound by that fundamental constitutional axiom. And so that shows you, all you Canadians who are listening, and everyone outside of the country who might be the least bit interested in Canada, that shows you exactly what our bloody Constitution is worth. We have the opportunity to make the world a far better place, but with all that technological power comes the capacity for things to go seriously sideways, so we better be wise enough to master our technology. How many of you have seen Big Dog? How many of you are terrified by Big Dog?
Jordan Peterson seems very worried about where AI is going with every passing day. Check it out.
You know, you hear babies have no theory of mind. It's like, yeah, no, they can imitate. That's pretty bloody amazing, man. Like, you haven't seen robots that can do that yet. Although there are robots now that you can teach by moving their arms. You move their arms, and then they'll do it. And so you can actually program them by moving them, and then they'll just repeat it. And so they're getting damn close to imitation. They're really getting close. And then look the hell out, man. Because they're going to be imitating each other as well as us. And they're going to do it so fast, you just won't be able to believe it. So that's coming.
The Canadian psychologist is attempting to address a critical inquiry. Why are we investing in the development of AI despite the possibility of undesirable outcomes? However, the deeper one delves into this question, the more unsettling it becomes.
When people were first developing models of artificial intelligence, they thought they'd be able to develop machines that sort of modeled the world and then figured out how to act in the world, sort of abstractly, and then would, after they figured out how to act in the world, would then act in the world. But that proved to be impossible, as you can tell, because we don't have, you know, ambulatory robots that can like bus tables at a restaurant, which turns out to be, by the way, a very complex job. Fast mathematical operations, a computer can handle that easily, but bussing a table, it's like no computer's smart enough to do that. So that's pretty peculiar. But it turned out after like 40 years of investigation that you couldn't build computers that would operate as independent robots by teaching them to model the world and then by having them model the potential action that they were going to undertake and then by implementing it. that did not work, partly because modeling the world is way more complicated than anybody ever suspected. It's like infinitely more complicated.
Machine learning and AI have progressed to the point where computers can learn from data and even teach each other. However, some experts like Jordan Peterson realize there is a side of the coin that's just not being shown here.
You know, the guys that are building the autonomous cars, like, they don't think they're building autonomous cars. They know perfectly well what they're doing. They're building fleets of mutually intercommunicating autonomous robots. And each of them will be able to teach the other because their nervous system will be the same. And when there's 10 million of them, when one of them learns something, all 10 million of them will learn it at the same time. So they're not going to have to be very bright before they're very, very, very smart. Because us, you know, we'll learn something, you have to imitate it. It's like, God, that's hard. Or I have to explain it to you and you have to understand it and then you have to act it out. We're not connected wirelessly with the same platform. But robots, they are. And so once those things get a little bit smart, they're not going to stop at a little bit smart for very long. They're going to be unbelievably smart, like overnight.
Many individuals, including Mr. Peterson, have expressed concerns about the potential consequences of failing to align artificial intelligence with human values. This is exemplified by developments such as the creation of Big Dog, a quadruped robot that can traverse difficult terrain. If we don't take the appropriate steps to align AI with our values, the results could be catastrophic.
Some of you have seen Big Dog. You've seen Big Dog? Look up DARPA, D-A-R-P-A. How many of you have seen Big Dog? How many of you are terrified by Big Dog? Yes. Big Dog is this robot that's being developed by the US Army. It's about this big, and it's four-legged. It's got a head. And it can run like faster than you. And it can run in snow, and it can run on ice, and it can run up hills. And if you kick it, it balances and stands back up. But hypothetically, it's going to be used to transport like the heavy things that soldiers have to carry. But, you know, don't believe that. That's a stupid idea. Once these things can ambulate by themselves and they can already follow each other because now they have visual systems, arming them is going to be a very simple matter. And so the probability that we'll have unbelievably super fast robots that can shoot you in 10 years is, like, to me, as far as I can tell from the development, is absolutely certain. I have a friend who's a computer engineer, and he's a really good one, and he said, you know how in science fiction movies, sometimes when those robots shoot at you, they miss? He said, when the robots shoot at you, not only will they shoot at where you are, but they'll shoot at the 6 places that they calculate you're most likely to dart to, and they will never miss. So that's a lovely thing to think about.
Every visual scene is incomprehensibly complex. There's an indefinite number of ways of seeing everything. And this is partly why we don't have general purpose robots, is because AI engineers originally believed that the problem of robotics would be the computation of action in the world. But it turned out that the problem of robotics was seeing the world. And that really shocked everyone, because when you look at the world, it's like, well, there it is, you know, no problem. You just open your eyes and bang, there are the objects. And yeah, they're objects. It's like, well, how many of them? Well, you could get lost in the details of this carpet. If you were a photorealist painter, you know, you could take just a section of the carpet and it would take you maybe 3 weeks to paint it in a high resolution manner. And even then you wouldn't have captured anywhere near the detail, and you'd only have done it under one condition of illumination. And that's just a fragment of a visual scene.
And they're imitating the hell out of us right now too, because we're teaching them how to understand us. Every second of every day, the net is learning what we're like. It's watching us, it's communicating with us, it's imitating us, and it's going to know, it already knows in some ways more about us than we know about ourselves. You know, there's lots of reports already of people getting pregnancy ads or ads for infants, sometimes before they know they're pregnant, but often before they've told their families. And the way that that happens is the net is watching what they're looking at and inferring with its artificial intelligence. And so maybe you're pregnant and that's just tilting you a little bit, right, to interest in things that you might not otherwise be interested in. The net tracks that, and it tells you what you're after. It does that by offering you an advertisement. It's reading your unconscious mind. So that's what's happening.
And so some robotics engineers, such as Rodney Brooks, who worked at MIT, started building robots from the bottom up. He made these little mindless robots that really didn't even have a central processor that were action-oriented. So like the first things he built were these little insect-like things that skitter away from light. That's all they could do. If you turn on light, poof, they'd go find some dark. And it's as if, so imagine the world to that robot was a binary place. It was either a light place or a dark place. And then you might say, well, what did light or dark mean to this little robot? And then you have to ask yourself, well, what does meaning mean? And that's a very good question. It's one that Piaget answers. Meaning means, to that little robot, move to a different place. So light to that robot meant move to a different place. So what the robot, in a sense, was doing was transforming one form of information, light versus dark, into another form, which was skitter away. And so I love that because it's not easy to understand what meaning means until you relate it to the body. And so Piaget's fundamental proposition is that the elements of your understanding are not perceptual abstractions. In fact, there's even elements of understanding that underlie your perceptual abstractions that are more fundamental. And what those are, essentially, are sensory motor skills, things you do with your body. It's a lovely idea. It's extremely profound. And I think it's absolutely correct. It does wreak havoc with the idea of disembodied intelligence.
We have the opportunity to make the world a far better place, but with all that technological power comes the capacity for things to go seriously sideways, so we better be wise enough to master our technology. And again, I would say, well, that's all on you. You're all going to be participating in this intensely, and it's all going to depend more than you think on the decisions that each of you make. So you better make the right decisions, because you've got a lot more power than you think, and it's going to increase at a tremendous rate. So I don't see a better route forward than to make stronger people.